On this Friday's episode of the Crush the Rush Pep Talk, I actually debated whether I should talk about this again because I sort of feel like a broken record when it comes to repurposing and engagement, specifically when it comes to Instagram and our strategy. But I feel like I need to just scream this from the rooftops because it has helped us so much. Helped us find new clients, helped us save time, helped me feel way less stressed about social in general. And so I just kind of go back to sometimes you have to hear things more than once. And so I'm going to share it in a little bit of a different way. And I'm going to walk you through our current case study. So if you are taking notes, this is what I want you to write down. Please start repurposing your content. Please. And I'm asking you nicely, but you should totally do it. So let me do a little timeline recap for you as it relates to content and Instagram and sort of our social journey. So number one, I know my clients are on Instagram. I can see you guys on there, but I also know that you're listening and you're hanging out in other places as well. Number two, because I started my business while I was working full time, I couldn't exactly post, 10 times a day or make a lot of reels or honestly just spend a lot of time on content because I was sitting in meetings with C-suite officers and I couldn't be like, hey, now's the best time for me to post. I need to step out, right? Like it just didn't work. And so I had to come up with a different plan, which I'm sure you guys have heard me share before, which is insert our antisocial plan and content repurposing. If you listen to this podcast, I know that I have shared this story a lot, but it's so important. And most of the time when we listen to a podcast or a workshop or we hear somebody talk about things, like how many times do we actually do the thing that we're sharing? And so today I want you to actually do the thing. So in episode 398, I walk through with my team member how to repurpose content. I give you all the technical steps of how we create it, how we come up with it, and basically this new strategy that we implemented a couple of months ago. But here's what's happened since, right? So this is like an update. I feel like we maybe did that podcast 3 months ago, and now I'm sharing how it's worked. So number one, all of our content on Instagram, what you see on Instagram, 100% comes from this podcast. Nothing new has been created on social media, which then turns into 12 different pieces of content. So if you're listening, this one podcast episode now turns into 12 different pieces of content. And I'm being honest, at first when we started doing video and I started writing more lengthy show notes, I was like, why am I doing this, right? Like, I don't always want to show up on camera. Sometimes I have a hat on, sometimes I have a sweatshirt on. It's fine. It doesn't matter. What matters is me showing up on camera consistently doing this Friday episode creates 12 pieces of content a week, which is like, oh my God. And that's where I start to nerd out and I'm like, please, 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 please do this, right? Which, since our last episode where I talked about how we've created this strategy, I have since created a flow chart for my team and have mapped out all the different places this content can go. But anyone can do this. You could literally map it out on the back of a napkin and it would work just as well. But what happens is this Friday content comes out, right? This podcast comes out. And then we have this little flow chart that shows all the different things that we create. And then I took it a step further and I assigned a day to it. So when it's actually going to happen. So if you are a fan of my CEO Week Challenge, you know that I like themes and I like days when I'm specifically doing things. So content repurposing is happening on a certain day. Certain things are happening on a certain day. And so this content from this episode goes to YouTube, which, hey, we started a YouTube channel. These are things that I forget to talk about. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, which I have a Facebook business page. I haven't been there in 5 years. I finally did look at it for this episode, and Pinterest. And so as an example, our podcast team posts this to YouTube and my VA creates posts that actually feature this podcast episode. So when you see social content that actually is talking about the podcast, that's done by a team member. But I think it's important to share that I actually create all the other content. So all the other content that you see on social, the reels, anything else that's basically not the podcast episode is me. And I wanted to share that because I think most people looking at our social would assume that I've outsourced it because we have in the past. But by implementing this new repurposing plan, I was actually able to take this on myself. And I'm going to share with you how we actually do it. So if you break this down, this is 12 pieces of content a week, which I would say is free because, 90% of it is my time. Or you could pay a social media person $1,000 a month. I say $1,000 a month. That's probably minimum. It's actually probably low, but I want you to sort of see where I'm going, right? So it's $12,000 a year to outsource content, or you could come up with a really powerful repurposing strategy and do it yourself or have your team members help you. Now, I share this as a case study because I do outsource a ton of things. And so I think it's up to you to decide where you want to spend your time. But for me personally, as we sort of went along this content repurposing journey, I was like, I just don't think it makes sense to create even more content on social because we have so much content. I don't spend a lot of time on social and I really didn't need to have somebody else do it. And so again, just sharing more behind the scenes, but this feels way more aligned with what I teach, but also we're creating so much content. We're creating 12 pieces of content a week minimum, and I could do way more if I wanted. I just haven't taken it that far yet. So I'm sharing this because you can do it. You just need a roadmap. You just need a plan. Like I said, you could write it on the back of a napkin of how you're repurposing. So number one, having a content roadmap matters. And all I did was map out where I wanted things to go and then created templates for how that works, which again is in the previous episode. It's not fancy. You could literally write it down on a piece of paper right now and you would still get the same results if it was in a fancy flow chart. Number two is it works. And that's why I wanted to do this episode because I can share the stats with you now over the last 30 days. Because we are now on Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, like insert the platform of choice. It doesn't matter where the content comes from. What matters is that you're being consistent. What matters is that you're being consistent with your content strategy. So I thought it would be fun today to actually get into the stats. So these are real-time stats in the last 30 days. So start with Facebook. Like I said, I do nothing on my Facebook business page. I recently changed the cover photo because I finally logged in at the first time in like 2 years. Engagement in the last 30 days is up 46%. I never use this app except to post dance pictures of my kids. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. We do have new followers. We do have more engagement, but 46%, that's a pretty good number. Instagram engagement in the last 30 days is up 76%. I'm sharing this number specifically because I actually have not done any engagement. So whenever you hear social strategists talk, they talk about engagement behind the scenes. I haven't done any engagement because it's me running my social account and honestly, I just haven't had time. But what I have done is I've answered all of my DMs. I always respond to every single message or comment. And sometimes, usually like once or twice a week, I just scroll and I comment on what I like, right? Which is usually Real Housewives or how to plant flowers or something that's just really fun and not business. That's what my relationship is with Instagram right now. But what I will say is it's super, super healthy and it's something that I'm really proud of because it feels good. Like it feels really aligned and it feels like it matches what I like to do. So that's Instagram, up 76%. LinkedIn, I'm still running LinkedIn on my personal page, and this is like a real life scenario. Yes, I should move it over to a business page, but I haven't done that yet, and so it won't track metrics. But I have had clients come from LinkedIn in the last 90 days, so I'm calling it a win. And if I'm being honest, this would be the place that I would focus on more if I had time. But one thing that I have done on LinkedIn that's been really, really helpful is really focusing in on hashtags. So making sure that I'm choosing really simple hashtags that I can put in the comments of LinkedIn posts. So if you're following along, you're like, well, Holly, how do I do that? I actually use ChatGPT for hashtags. Again, this is like such a simple strategy. So I take the post that I wrote, they're my words, not ChatGPT words. I put it in ChatGPT and then I say, give me 20 trending hashtags. It's going to give you some warning that says we don't actually keep track of trends, right? But it'll actually give you 20 hashtags that are pretty legit. Some of them are a little weird, but most of them are done right. Like most of them are pretty accurate. So I've just been really focusing on making sure that I link the posts with the right hashtags. And then finally, Pinterest. So our engagement is actually down 12%. Like I said, I'm giving you real life here, but here's the kicker. This like blows my mind. Our monthly views went from 20K to, are you ready? Our highest has been 400K views per month. 400K. I don't even know what percentage that is, but that's a lot, right? Right now, as of today, we're at about 300K views per month. And I'm sharing these stats because I love case studies, but also the only reason this is working is because we've been really consistent for 30 days. We have taken this podcast episode, we've broken it down into 12 pieces of content every single week, and we've consistently repeated it over and over and over again. The other crazy thing is I post everything at the same time. I post everything at like 7 a.m. It's scheduled through an app that we use called Metrocool, and that's it, right? I do spend a decent amount of time thinking about these episodes, these podcast episodes, and what I want to share and what I want to teach, but everything else is on autopilot. So usually on Friday afternoon, I sit down and I execute our content plan. And I know that the podcast episodes are being taken care of our team, but the rest is me. And it takes about, 30 minutes, right? And I'm getting better at it as we go. But I just, like I said, I want to like scream this from the rooftops because we're seeing such really cool results, really engaging results from being really, really freaking consistent. And so I thought I would break it down just a little bit more. So if you're like, well, that's great, Holly, but what do you actually do on Friday? Like when you have this podcast episode, if you don't have a podcast, you could have a blog post or an email. Like, what do you actually do? So I take my Sunday email, which is from the podcast, and I make it into a Steal My Strategy reel. If you go to Instagram, you'll see it, right? It's on repeat every single week. I've done the same thing for 30 days. And then I use either a Canva template or video footage that I have saved in my phone from various activities that we've done. So I can literally create it in my pajamas in like 10 minutes. My Wednesday email that is also taken from this podcast gets made into what I call a point of view reel, which I'm sure that you have seen. And so as an example, a point of view reel might be like video that I have in my phone that I've taken from other events. And I could say, point of view from this podcast episode, which maybe I'll do. You could hire a social media manager for $1,000 a month, or you could do this strategy and save $12K a year. That will get your attention, right? But it's coming from this podcast episode, which got made into an email, which then got made into an Instagram reel, which then got shared on Pinterest, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn. I think that's it. So that's one teeny tiny piece of content that just got repurposed 4 different times. So to me, that's like really exciting. And so like I said, it takes me about 30 minutes between using Canva, where I have templates saved, and I use an app called CapCut, which is where I pull those like little memes from. So if you see like the Taylor Swift memes or like the Office memes or something like that, like CapCut makes it really, really easy. So 30 minutes, and our engagement in 30 days is up 150%. So to me, that's worth a try, right? So here's what I would encourage you to do. Pull out a piece of paper. Like if you're driving, pull over, write it down. Write down one piece of content that you really love creating. For me, it's podcasting. For you, it could be a blog. It could be an email. Honestly, it could be an Instagram post, but we just want to make sure that it's long enough where you can repurpose it. And then just get creative and think how you can repurpose it. It's honestly that easy. The goal is that you like doing it and you're being consistent. So I want you to actually do this. Like I want you to listen to the episode and actually do it. So DM me when you do it, email me, show me your plan. And let's just think of business strategy a little bit different, right? Like business strategy can truly be this easy. And I'm telling you, you're going to get results from being consistent.